everybody, it's Rowan back again. I asked you for some questions for Q&A a while ago. Turns out the questions were too good. So I'm going to turn them into these kind of videos, tentatively called thoughts and stuff, because they're my thoughts on some stuff. Our thoughts and stuff for today comes from Violets of Resistance on Tumblr, who asked if it is better to have no representation or bad representation. We are like here in terms of what we know we should be getting in representation, because like these people exist and like are us, and we're like, we'd like to be represented, please. And then this is like actual representation, and it's very frustrating that we can't just go there, that we have to go through these steps of like bad representation to get there. And it shouldn't be that way, but I think in terms of who's getting hired to write, to direct, who is kind of what kind of characters they're creating, what level characters in terms of if they're primary or protagonists, if they're antagonists, if they're secondary or tertiary characters, it's difficult. So I have a real tough time with this. I feel like everyone kind of has a tough time with this, but I think what we need to look at is why is it bad representation, right? So examples of why something might be bad representation. Classic example might be The Danish Girl. It might be a very good film, objectively, except for the fact that, you know, there's a cis actor in a trans role, specifically a cis male actor in the role of a trans woman. I think that most people in the trans community agree not good, but there are some trans people who are like, I'm kind of like quite grateful that they're telling trans stories, especially trans history, and of course it would have been much more preferable to be a trans woman, but if this is just like a smattering of films in the history of film history, which is going to have a cis man as a trans woman and then we can progress, I'm willing to suck it up for a bit. And I think it's difficult because we don't know what happens next, right? So we don't know if this is going to turn into actually, yeah, people learn their lesson and cast trans women in these roles, or if it's just, oh, that did quite well, we can continue to do that. And I think that's the difficulty, because it's like, if you didn't respect me enough to do it in the first place, why do I think you're going to respect me enough to do it later on in other films? So if we say we're going to boycott something like Stonewall, do the funders see, oh, this movie didn't make a lot of money, therefore like gay and trans movies don't make a lot of money, or stories about our history don't make a lot of money? Or do they look at it and go, the reason why it didn't make the money is because these people who are boycotting it for this very specific reason? And I think that it has a knock-on effect in terms of bad representation or no representation, because potentially not supporting bad representation could potentially lead to no representation. But again, we don't know how it's going to pan out, because no one can see into the future, and no one can see into the convoluted and completely illogical minds of people who apparently fund films. I mean, other bad representation we have is like gay guys, especially feminine gay guys, being like the butt of the joke. Is it okay for them to be the butt of the joke if they're still included in there? What about tertiary characters? So characters who are like well-written characters, but they ultimately are like relegated to very, very side background characters. Another kind of bad representation might be representation that's inaccurate. It might not be offensive, outwardly offensive, but it's just inaccurate, and I feel like that's probably something that we're going to get as we go through and start to get more intersex characters, more asexual characters, more trans characters, basically characters we haven't seen properly yet. Like, what is the harm, right, in bad representation? And I feel like each of these examples has a different kind of harm to it, and a different propensity for harm. So like, if we have misinformation, people learn about stuff that they don't know about via the media, and the media comes from many sources. So it comes from the news and factual media and documentary, but it also comes from fictional media. And if something is apparently truthful and factual, and then it presents itself as such, but it's just very, very inaccurate in the way it portrays marginalized people, that's going to spread misinformation. And that isn't good, and oftentimes it's going to be very difficult to reverse the effects of when you eventually get it right. I feel like it's just like, who is this for, right? Because I feel like these two solutions of like, do you have no or do you have bad? They're just for straight and cis people, right? Like, then like, we know that that shouldn't be how it is, and yet that's kind of what we're being given. So I've talked about this in my respectability politics video, but the idea is that representation is not for the people that it's representing. It's actually, you know, trying to bundle it up as nicely as possible for the straight people. So why does it matter that we put this Danny, this fictional like gay white boy, in with Stonewall with all these queer women of colour that actually existed? Because the straight people, like, it tested well with straight audiences, so obviously we had to put him in there, you know? It's so frustrating as a question to think about, because it's like working on this premise that is just inherently not satisfactory at all. It's this it's the reality that we live in, but it's so easy for that not to be the reality, right? It's not like we live in this world where we can't have good representation. We have examples of good representation, you know? This question seems a distraction from like working towards getting to a place where the good representation actually happens. So those are my thoughts and stuff, I suppose. If you have any more kind of questions or topics that you want me to do in this kind of format, then please leave them in the comments. I'm gonna leave a little video here if you wanna keep watching, and if you'd like to help support me make these videos, I'm gonna leave a link to my Patreon along with all my social media links. You can find me all over the internet. Until I see you next time, bye!